They placed her table right next to the kitchen's swinging doors, the reject table where the waiters scraped the leftover food. Serena Bennett sat there alone, clutching a lukewarm glass of water, watching her childhood best friend, Tiffany, laugh under the crystal chandeliers of the Pierre Hotel in Manhattan. Serena wasn't just a guest. She was the punchline of a joke she didn't know was being told. She had no date, no friends in the room, and a dress that cost less than the floral arrangements. She was about to leave in tears when the heavy oak doors swung open. The room went silent. The groom's mysterious, billionaire best friend had finally arrived, and instead of walking to the VIP table, he walked straight toward the kitchen doors, straight toward Serena. And what happened next didn't just ruin the wedding. It exposed a 10-year-old lie that would destroy the bride's life forever. You need to hear this story. The cream-colored envelope had arrived 3 months ago, embossed with gold leaf that probably cost more than Serena Bennett's weekly grocery budget. It was heavy, textured, and screamed old money, or at least the desperate pretense of it. Tiffany Miller and Kyle Sterling request the honor of your presence. Serena had stared at it for a long time. 10 years ago, she and Tiffany had been inseparable, two scholarship kids trying to survive a private high school in Connecticut filled with sharks. But then college happened. Tiffany reinvented herself, bleaching her hair, maxing out credit cards, and hunting for a husband with a trust fund. Serena had stayed back, working 2 jobs, taking care of her sick mother, and slowly grinding her way through a paralegal certification. They hadn't spoken in 3 years, not since Tiffany told Serena she was too depressing to be around after Serena's mother passed. So why the invite? It's a power move, Serena's co-worker, distinctively pragmatic, had warned her. She wants you there to see how far she's climbed. Don't go. But Serena went. She went because a small, pathetic part of her missed her friend. She went because she wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, Tiffany wanted to bury the hatchet before her big day. She was wrong. The wedding was held at the Pierre on 5th Avenue, a venue that smelled of lilies and old money. The reception hall was a sea of pastel silk and custom-tailored suits. Serena, wearing a navy blue dress she'd found on sale at Macy's, tasteful but clearly off the rack, felt the eyes on her immediately. Name? The hostess asked, scanning the iPad with a bored expression. Serena Bennett. The hostess scrolled, her manicured finger tapping the screen. A small, pitying smile touched her lips. Ah, yes. You're at table 22. Thank you. Serena walked into the ballroom. Table 1 through 10 were clustered around the dance floor. Prime real estate. Tables 11 through 20 radiated outward. Serena kept walking. She walked past the ice sculpture of a swan. She walked past the chocolate fountain. She found table 22 in the far corner, wedged between the service entrance to the kitchen and the hallway leading to the restrooms. It was a small, wobbly, round table that lacked the lavish floral centerpiece the other tables had. Instead, it had a single, sad candle, and she was the only one sitting there. Classic Tiffany, Serena whispered to herself, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. The room began to fill. Serena watched as people she recognized from high school, people who used to ignore her, took their seats at table 5 and table 6. They were laughing, clinking champagne flutes. Tiffany, the bride, was circulating, looking radiant in a Vera Wang gown that hugged her curves. She was laughing with a group of women from her sorority, her hand resting possessively on Kyle's chest. Kyle looked tired. He was a nice enough guy, coming from a family with a moderate construction business in Jersey, but Tiffany treated him like a prop. Eventually, Tiffany floated toward the back of the room. She spotted Serena. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a predator's grin. "Serena, oh my God, you actually came." Tiffany squealed, though she didn't move to hug her. She stayed 3 feet away, as if poverty were contagious. "Congratulations, Tiff. You look beautiful," Serena said, forcing a smile. "I know, right?" "It's custom," Tiffany said, smoothing the silk. She glanced at Serena's table, then at the kitchen door, which swung open, hitting the back of Serena's chair with a dull thud. A waiter rushed out with a tray of dirty dishes. The smell of old fish wafted over. "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry about the seating," Tiffany lied, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "We just had so many last-minute acceptances from Kyle's business partners. VIPs, you know. We had to squeeze you in where we could. I knew you wouldn't mind. You're always so flexible." "It's fine," Serena said, her voice tight. "And you're all alone. I thought you'd bring that guy. What was his name? The one who works at the gas station?" "I'm single, Tiffany." "Right. Still." Tiffany sighed, adjusting her diamond earring. "Well, try to have fun. Oh, and don't drink too much of the champagne, okay? It's Dom Perignon. We don't want you getting rowdy." She turned on her heel and glided away, leaving Serena humiliated. Serena looked down at her plate. She should leave. She should stand up, walk out, and block Tiffany's number. But her legs felt heavy. Leaving now would make a scene. It would prove Tiffany right, that she didn't belong. So, Serena sat. She endured the first course, a lobster bisque that was cold by the time the waiters reached table 22. She endured the whispers of the guests at table 21, who kept glancing at her and giggling. Then the DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We have a very special arrival, the groom's best man, who flew in all the way from London just for tonight. Please welcome Mr. Harrison Pierce." The room went quiet. Even the clinking of silverware stopped. Serena looked up. She knew the name. Harrison Pierce was the CEO of Pierce Global, a tech venture firm based in London. He was on the cover of Forbes last month. He was Kyle's childhood friend from summer camp, the one whale guest Tiffany had been bragging about for months. She had desperately wanted him there to elevate the wedding's status. The double doors opened. Harrison Pierce did not look like the other men in the room. While most were wearing rented tuxedos or ill-fitting suits, Harrison wore a charcoal 3-piece suit that fit him like a second skin. Savile Row, bespoke, probably worth more than Serena's car. He didn't walk, he strode. He had dark hair, sharp features, and an energy that sucked the air out of the room. He looked dangerous in the way that very powerful, very wealthy men often do. Tiffany practically vibrated with excitement at the head table. She waved frantically, pointing to the empty seat next to her. The seat of honor. "Harrison, over here," she mouthed, her face flushed with triumph. Harrison scanned the room. His eyes were the color of steel, cold and calculating. He didn't smile. He looked at the head table, where Tiffany was preening. He looked at Kyle, who offered a weak, apologetic wave. Harrison nodded once at the groom, then turned his attention to the rest of the room. He ignored the usher who was trying to guide him to the front. He began walking through the tables. The guests watched, mesmerized. Was he lost? He walked past table 1, the bride's family. He walked past table 5, the bridesmaids. He walked past the dance floor. Tiffany's smile began to falter. "Harrison," she called out, her voice slightly shrill. "The head table is this way." Harrison didn't stop. He navigated the room with a singular purpose, his gaze fixed on the back corner. Serena shrank in her seat. Please don't come back here, she thought. Please don't let him be coming to the bathroom. She didn't want this man, this titan of industry, to see her sitting next to the garbage station. She grabbed her purse, ready to bolt into the ladies' room to hide. But he stopped. Right in front of table 22. The entire ballroom was craning their necks. A hush fell over the room, so silent you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Harrison Pierce looked down at the wobbly table. He looked at the single, sad candle. He looked at the kitchen door swinging inches from Serena's chair. Then he looked at Serena. For a second, Serena forgot how to breathe. Up close, he was devastatingly handsome, but he looked furious. His jaw was clenched tight. "Is this seat taken?" he asked. His voice was deep, a rich baritone that carried in the silence. Serena blinked, stunned. What? "Is this seat taken?" he repeated, gesturing to the empty plastic chair opposite her. "No," Serena whispered. "But the head table. Tiffany. She's waiting for you." Harrison glanced back at the head table. Tiffany was standing now, her face a mask of confusion and rising anger. Harrison turned back to Serena, and for the first time his expression softened. A small conspiratorial smirk played on his lips. "I prefer the company back here," he said. He pulled out the cheap plastic chair and sat down. The room erupted in whispers. It was a scandal. The billionaire best man, the guest of honor, had just rejected the bride's table to sit with the nobody at the reject table by the toilets. A waiter, looking terrified, rushed over. "Mr. Pierce? Sir? There must be a mistake. We have your place card at the front. I'm sitting here," Harrison said, not even looking at the waiter. He picked up the bottle of cheap house wine that had been left on Serena's table, inspected the label with a slight grimace, and poured himself a glass. "In fact, bring a bottle of the 96 Bollinger from the bar, and bring 2 glasses. This one," he gestured to the house wine, "is vinegar." The waiter scrambled away. Serena stared at him, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Why are you doing this?" she hissed, leaning in. "You're making a scene. Tiffany is going to kill me." Harrison took a sip of the bad wine and met her eyes. "Let her try," he said calmly. Then he leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a murmur only she could hear. "You don't recognize me, do you, Serena?" Serena frowned, searching his face, the sharp cheekbones, the intense eyes. She shook her head. "No, I've never met a billionaire before." "I wasn't a billionaire when we met," he said. "I was a delivery boy. 10 years ago. You used to order Thai food from Siam Orchid every Thursday night while you were studying for your SATs." Serena's mouth fell open. The memory hit her like a freight train. The Thai place. The shy delivery guy with the messy hair and the beat-up bicycle. It was the winter of her senior year. There was a blizzard one night, a nor'easter that shut down the city. He had delivered her pad thai on a bike in 3 feet of snow because he needed the tips to pay for his coding boot camp. She had tipped him her entire week's allowance, $50, and given him her scarf because he was shivering. "Harry," she gasped. "You're Harry the delivery guy?" "Harrison," he corrected, with a smile that reached his eyes this time. "But you called me Harry. You gave me $50 and a red wool scarf. That $50 bought the textbook I needed to finish my first coding module. I never forgot it." Serena sat back, reeling. The universe was playing a joke on her. The delivery boy she had helped a decade ago was now Harrison Pierce, the tech mogul, and he was currently destroying Tiffany's wedding reception to sit with her. "I tried to find you," Harrison said, his demeanor serious again. "For years. But you changed your number. When Kyle invited me and I saw the guest list, I saw Serena Bennett. I had to know if it was you. You came for me?" Serena asked, her voice trembling. "I came to see an old friend," he said. and to see why the kindest person I ever met was being treated like garbage by a woman who isn't fit to hold your purse. At the head table, Tiffany had seen enough. She slammed her champagne glass down, hard enough that the stem snapped. She whispered something furious to Kyle, then hitched up her dress and began storming across the room toward table 22. Her face was a shade of red that clashed violently with the pastel decor. "Brace yourself," Harrison said, leaning back and crossing his legs casually. "Here comes the bride." Tiffany arrived at the table, panting slightly. She ignored Serena completely and fixed a trembling fake smile on Harrison. "Harrison, you silly thing," she laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You must be confused. The lighting is bad back here. Come on, let's get you to the front. The photographers are waiting for the toast." She reached out to grab his arm. Harrison didn't move. He didn't stand up. He just looked at her hand on his sleeve until she awkwardly pulled it back. "I'm not confused, Tiffany," Harrison said coolly. "I'm catching up with Serena. We have a lot to talk about. Did you know she was the first investor in my company?" Tiffany froze. "What? Serena? She works at a call center." "Technically," Harrison said, "that $50 tip she gave me 10 years ago has accrued significant interest. In my eyes, she's the most valuable person in this room." Tiffany's eyes darted between them. The humiliation was radiating off her. The entire room was watching. She needed to regain control. She turned her glare on Serena. "Serena!" Tiffany snapped, her voice dropping the sweet act. "Stop embarrassing yourself. You're making Harrison uncomfortable. Tell him you need to leave. Now." Serena looked at Tiffany. She looked at the woman who had mocked her mother's death, who had invited her just to shame her, who had put her by the trash. Then she looked at Harrison, who was waiting, watching her with quiet support. Serena took a deep breath. She picked up a glass of water. "I'm not going anywhere, Tiffany," Serena said, her voice shaking but clear. "And actually, Harrison promised me a dance." Harrison's smile was like a shark perceiving blood in the water. "I believe I did." Tiffany looked like she had been slapped. But before she could scream, the waiter returned with the bottle of Bollinger. The pop of the cork echoed through the silent room like a gunshot. "Excellent," Harrison said. He poured a glass for Serena, then raised his own. "To old friends. And to karma." He clinked his glass against Serena's. Tiffany stood there, impotent and furious, as the balance of power in the room shifted violently. But she didn't know the half of it yet. She didn't know that Harrison Pierce knew about the business trip she had taken to Miami last month. And he didn't know that Serena had a secret of her own, one that was about to turn this wedding from a disaster into a war zone. The bottle of Bollinger was empty within 20 minutes. Harrison didn't just drink it, he held court. It was fascinating to watch the social hierarchy of the ballroom collapse in real time. Once the guests realized that Harrison Pierce, the man whose net worth was higher than the GDP of a small country, was sitting at the loser table, the gravity of the room shifted. Suddenly, people who had ignored Serena for a decade were desperate to say hello. "Serena, is that you?" chirped Jessica, a girl who had once spread a rumor that Serena ate glue in the 10th grade. Jessica was now hovering by table 22, clutching her pearls. "I haven't seen you in ages. We simply must get coffee." Serena looked at Jessica. She remembered crying in the bathroom stall because of Jessica. She looked at Harrison, who was watching the interaction with a bemused smirk, swirling his champagne. "I don't drink coffee with people who made my life hell, Jessica," Serena said evenly. Jessica's smile faltered. She looked at Harrison for backup, but he just raised his glass to Serena. "I like her policy," he said. "It keeps the circle tight." Jessica fled. "You're enjoying this," Serena accused him, though a small smile was tugging at her own lips. "I am," Harrison admitted. "But we're not done yet. The band is starting." Across the room, a 12-piece swing band had begun to play. The lead singer crooned the opening notes of "The Way You Look Tonight." It was time for the open dance floor. Tiffany and Kyle had already done their obligatory sway. Now, Tiffany was aggressively pulling Kyle toward the VIP section, trying to keep him away from Harrison. She was terrified. She kept glancing over her shoulder, her eyes manic. Harrison stood up and extended a hand to Serena. "Dance with me." "Harrison, I can't," Serena whispered, looking down at her Macy's dress. "Look at everyone else. Sequins, silk, designer labels. I'm wearing polyester." "Serena," Harrison said, his voice dropping to that serious, intense tone that made her stomach flip. "You're the only person in this room who is real. That makes you the most expensive thing here. Now take my hand." She took it. He led her out. Not to the edge of the floor, but right to the center, directly under the massive crystal chandelier. Harrison Pierce knew how to dance. He didn't just shuffle. He led with a confident, strong frame. He spun her, and for a moment, Serena forgot about the stains on the tablecloth and the insults. She felt weightless. The room stopped, literally. Couples slowed down and drifted to the edges just to watch. Tiffany was standing by the cake table, gripping a silver cake knife so hard her knuckles were white. She watched the man she wanted to impress dancing with the friend she wanted to erase. "He's in love with her," a bridesmaid whispered, loud enough for Tiffany to hear. "Look at the way he looks at her." Tiffany spun around. "Shut up, Courtney. He's just being charitable. It's a PR stunt." But on the dance floor, it didn't feel like PR. "You look tense," Harrison murmured, pulling Serena slightly closer as the music swelled. "Tiffany is staring daggers at me. If looks could kill, I'd be dead before the bridge of this song." "Let her stare. She needs to see what she threw away," Harrison said. Then his expression darkened slightly. "Serena, I need to tell you something. I didn't just come here for nostalgia. I came because of Kyle." "Kyle?" Serena looked over at the groom, who was currently taking a shot of tequila at the bar, looking miserable. "He seems fine. A bit overwhelmed." "He's not fine. He's the mark," Harrison said grimly. "My firm did a background check on Tiffany when Kyle announced the engagement. Standard procedure when one of my oldest friends gets married to someone I don't know." Serena's heart skipped a beat. "And? And Tiffany Miller isn't just a mean girl from high school, Serena. She's a professional grifter. Her marketing consultant business in the city? It's a shell. It doesn't exist. She's hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. She's marrying Kyle to pay off a loan shark in New Jersey." Serena missed a step. Harrison caught her easily. "A loan shark?" Serena hissed. "Harrison, this isn't a soap opera. This is real life." "Exactly. And in real life, people get desperate. But that's not the worst part." Harrison spun her again, his eyes locking onto hers. "She told Kyle she was pregnant, didn't she? That's why the wedding was moved up?" Serena nodded slowly. "Yes. She told me. Well, she told everyone on Facebook. She's 3 months along. It's a miracle baby, apparently." Harrison's face was cold granite. "It's a miracle, all right, because I have her medical records from a clinic in Miami. She had a tubal ligation 4 years ago, Serena. She can't get pregnant." The music seemed to distort in Serena's ears. A fake pregnancy, a fake business, a fake life. "You have to tell him," Serena whispered. "I'm going to," Harrison said, "but not yet. I need him to see who she really is first. If I tell him now, he'll think I'm just a jealous friend trying to ruin his happiness. He needs to see her mask slip. And you are the key to making that happen. Me? Why me? Because, Harrison said, as the song ended, and he dipped her, flashing a dazzling smile for the photographer who snapped a picture right in Tiffany's line of sight. Nothing makes a narcissist lose control faster than seeing their victim thrive. The dinner service was an exercise in tension. The air in the ballroom was so thick with unspoken aggression, you could cut it with a steak knife. Tiffany had tried to have table 22 moved. She had screamed at the wedding planner in the hallway, a tantrum that 3 waiters and Serena had overheard, demanding that Harrison be moved to the head table and Serena be escorted out for intoxication. But the wedding planner, a weary woman named Brenda, who had clearly dealt with bridezillas before, refused. Mr. Pierce explicitly stated he would leave the venue if his seat was changed, Mrs. Sterling, and since he just tipped the catering staff $5,000 cash to keep the champagne flowing at table 22, my staff is very loyal to him right now. So, the seating remained. Serena sat next to Harrison, her head high. She wasn't the scared girl from the beginning of the night anymore. She knew the truth now. She looked at Tiffany, who was frantically whispering to her mother, and she didn't see a queen. She saw a desperate, drowning rat. "Ladies and gentlemen," the DJ announced, "it is time for the toasts. Please raise your glasses." First up was Tiffany's father, a quiet man who looked like he had mortgaged his house for this wedding. He mumbled something about Tiffany always getting what she wanted, which sounded more like a warning than a compliment. Then came the maid of honor, Jessica. She cried. She talked about how Tiffany was the most loyal, honest soul she had ever met. Serena choked on her water. Harrison handed her a napkin, hiding a laugh. "And now," the DJ boomed, "the best man, Mr. Harrison Pierce." The room erupted. This was the moment everyone was waiting for. Harrison stood up. He didn't walk to the front with a piece of paper. He didn't need notes. He walked to the microphone stand, adjusted it to his height, and looked out at the crowd. He looked relaxed, powerful, and utterly terrifying. "Good evening," Harrison said. "For those who don't know me, I'm Harrison. I've known Kyle since we were 12. We built a treehouse together that fell down immediately. We tried to build a raft that sank. Kyle has a history of investing in structures that look good on the outside but have no foundation." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the room. Kyle smiled, thinking it was a joke about their childhood. Tiffany's eyes narrowed. "But I'm not here to talk about the past," Harrison continued. "I'm here to talk about character. You see, loyalty is a currency. It's the only currency that matters. You can be rich, you can be beautiful, you can be wearing a $20,000 dress." He paused, his eyes flicking briefly to Tiffany. "But if you don't have loyalty, you're bankrupt." The room went silent. "I met someone tonight who taught me about loyalty a long time ago," Harrison said, turning his body slightly to face table 22. "Serena Bennett." Every head turned to Serena. She froze. 10 years ago," Harrison said to the room, "I was a nobody. I was delivering food in a blizzard. Serena didn't know me. She didn't owe me anything. But she gave me everything she had in her pocket because she saw a human being who was cold. She didn't ask for a receipt. She didn't ask for credit. That is character." Harrison turned back to the head table. He looked at Kyle. "And then there are people who take," Harrison said, his voice hardening. "People who view relationships as transactions. People who invite old friends to their weddings not to celebrate, but to humiliate them, to show off, to put them by the kitchen door, Tiffany stood up. "Okay, thank you, Harrison. Let's cut the cake," she shrieked, waving at the DJ to cut the mic. "I'm not finished," Harrison said. He didn't yell, but his voice commanded total obedience. Tiffany sat down, stunned. "Kyle," Harrison said, looking directly at the groom, "I love you like a brother, and because I love you, I have to give you a wedding gift. It's not a blender. It's the truth." Harrison reached into his inner suit pocket. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is a receipt," Harrison said, "from a hotel in Miami, the Fontainebleau, the presidential suite, 3 nights, last month." Tiffany's face went white, like sheet of paper white. "You told Kyle you were at a marketing conference in Orlando," Harrison said pleasantly. "But there was no conference, and you weren't alone. The room was booked under 2 names. Tiffany Miller." He paused for effect. The silence in the room was suffocating. "And Mark Sterling." A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. A glass shattered somewhere in the back. Kyle stood up slowly. He looked at Harrison. Then he looked at his new wife. Then he looked at the guest table where his older brother, Mark Sterling, the black sheep of the family, the one who had been cut out of the will years ago, was sitting. Mark was staring at his plate, refusing to look up. "Mark," Kyle whispered. "It's not what it looks like," Tiffany screamed, leaping up and grabbing Kyle's arm. "Harrison is lying. He's jealous. He's trying to ruin us." "I have the credit card statement, Tiffany," Harrison said calmly. "And I have the security footage from the hotel lobby. Would you like me to airplay it to the projector screens? I have it on my phone." "You slept with my brother?" Kyle asked, his voice breaking. He sounded like a child. "My brother?" "Kyle, listen to me," Tiffany pleaded, tears streaming down her face. But they were tears of panic, not remorse. "I did it for us. We needed money. Mark said he would give us the loan if I just talked to him." "Talk to him in the presidential suite?" Harrison interjected. "For 3 days?" Kyle pulled his arm away from Tiffany as if she burned him. He looked at her stomach, the stomach that was supposedly carrying his child. "The baby," Kyle said. Is it Mark's?" Harrison stepped back from the mic. He had fired the missile. Now he was just watching the explosion. He looked at Serena across the room. Serena stood up. It was time. Harrison had exposed the affair, but he didn't know the other half of the story. He didn't know the secret Serena had been holding on to since she arrived, the secret that explained why Tiffany was so desperate for money that she'd sleep with the groom's brother. Serena walked toward the head table. "It's not Mark's baby, Kyle," Serena said. Her voice wasn't amplified by a microphone, but in the dead silence of the ballroom, everyone heard her. Tiffany whipped around, her eyes wild. "You shut up! You shut your mouth, you jealous little—" "It's not Mark's baby," Serena repeated, walking until she was standing right in front of the bride and groom. "Because there is no baby." Tiffany lunged. Tiffany's lunge was desperate, a clawing attempt to silence the truth, but she never reached Serena. Harrison moved with the speed of a man who had spent his youth dodging traffic on a bicycle. He stepped in front of Serena, catching Tiffany by the wrists mid-air. He didn't hurt her, but he held her firm, an iron wall between the bride and his friend. "That's enough," Harrison growled, his voice low and dangerous. He shoved her gently backward. Tiffany stumbled, her heel catching on the hem of her Vera Wang gown. She fell back into the champagne tower. The crash was deafening. 300 crystal glasses shattered in a cascade of expensive noise and spraying alcohol. Tiffany lay in the wreckage, drenched in champagne and glass shards, gasping for air. The room was frozen in a tableau of horror. "You're lying!" Tiffany shrieked from the floor, wiping wet hair from her face. She looked deranged. "Kyle, don't listen to them," She's just a bitter, poor little waitress who's always been jealous of me. She wants you, Kyle. That's why she's doing this." Kyle didn't look at Serena. He was staring at his wife, or the woman who was supposed to be his wife, sprawled in the broken glass. "Show me," Kyle said. His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried. "Show you what?" Tiffany spat. "The ultrasound," Kyle said, stepping closer. "You said you have it in your purse. You showed it to my mother this morning. Show it to me." Tiffany froze. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit, looking for an ally. She found neither. Even her own mother had buried her face in her hands. I left it in the limo," Tiffany stammered. "No, you didn't," Serena spoke up. She walked around Harrison, her posture straight. She reached into the decorative bag Tiffany had left on the head table. "It's right here." Serena pulled out the glossy black and white strip. She walked over to Kyle and handed it to him. "Look at the date, Kyle," Serena said softly. Kyle squinted at the image. "October 14th. "October 14th, Serena repeated. 3 years ago." Kyle frowned, confusion warring with heartbreak. "What?" "I recognized the image when you posted it on Facebook, Tiffany," Serena said, turning to the woman on the floor. "Because I was there when you downloaded it. It's a stock photo. From Google Images. The metadata is still on the file if anyone cares to look, but you were sloppy. You didn't even crop out the medical ID number." Serena pointed to the corner of the ultrasound paper Kyle was holding. "ID 00492J. Patient name Jane Doe Sample." Kyle stared at the paper. Then he looked at Tiffany. The realization washed over him, turning his face a sickly shade of grey. "There is no baby," Kyle said, his voice trembling with a rage that was terrifying because it was so quiet. Harrison was right. The tubal ligation, the affair with Mark. It was all just a play for the trust fund, wasn't it? Tiffany stopped crying. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. She sat up in the puddle of champagne, her expression twisting into something ugly and sneering. "Of course it was about the trust fund, you idiot!" Tiffany snarled. The entire room gasped. She stood up, brushing glass off her dress, not caring that she was bleeding slightly from a scratch on her arm. "Do you think I wanted to marry you?" She laughed, a cruel, cold sound. "You're boring, Kyle. You're a manager at a construction firm. You drive a Ford. If it wasn't for your grandmother's inheritance clause, $5 million to the first grandson to produce an heir, I wouldn't have looked at you twice." She turned to Mark, who was still cowering at his table. "And him?" She pointed at Mark. "He was just insurance. I thought if I couldn't fake the pregnancy long enough, maybe I could get pregnant by the brother who actually has some fire in him. But turns out the Sterling genes are weak across the board." Kyle stood there, taking the blows, his hands clenched into fists. "Get out," Kyle said. "Gladly," Tiffany scoffed. This party was tacky anyway, and the flowers were wilted. She grabbed her purse and turned to storm out, but she stopped in front of Serena. She leaned in, her eyes full of venom. "You think you won?" Tiffany hissed. "You're still a nobody, Serena. You're going back to your little apartment and your dead-end life. Harrison Pierce is just playing with you. He'll fly back to London tomorrow, and you'll still be trash." "Actually," Harrison stepped in, placing a protective hand on Serena's shoulder. "She won't be going back to her apartment." "Oh, you taking her to your hotel?" Tiffany sneered. "No," Harrison said calmly. "I'm taking her to the police station. And so are they." He pointed to the main doors. 2 police officers walked in, accompanied by a frantic-looking venue manager. "Tiffany Miller?" one of the officers asked. Tiffany blanched. "Yes? What is this?" "We have a warrant for your arrest regarding check fraud and identity theft." the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. We received a call from the district attorney's office regarding a fraudulent business loan taken out in the name of Serena Bennett. Serena's eyes went wide. She looked at Harrison. He nodded grimly. I told you I did a background check, Harrison whispered to Serena. She didn't just steal your high school years, Serena. She stole your identity. She took out a $50,000 loan in your name 3 months ago to pay for this wedding. Serena felt the blood drain from her face, the credit denial letters, the weird calls from the bank she thought were spam. It was Tiffany. You stole my name? Serena whispered, horror dawning on her. You weren't using it for anything special, Tiffany spat as the officers grabbed her arms and clicked the handcuffs on. As they dragged the bride away, kicking, screaming, and cursing everyone in the room, the guests watched in stunned silence. The wedding of the year had turned into a crime scene. Kyle collapsed into a chair, putting his head in his hands. Harrison turned to the DJ, who was hiding behind his turntable. Turn the music off, Harrison commanded, and open the bar. Everything is on me. The sun rose over Manhattan, painting the skyline in hues of soft pink and orange, indifferent to the destruction of the night before. Serena sat on a velvet bench in the lobby of the Pierre, holding a cup of coffee that Harrison had brought her. She was still wearing her navy blue dress, though it was wrinkled now. Her feet were bare. She had ditched her heels hours ago. The police station had been a blur of statements, paperwork, and detectives looking at her with pity. Harrison had stayed with her the entire time. He had called his personal legal team, sharks in suits who arrived at the precinct at 3:00 a.m., to ensure Serena wouldn't be held liable for the debt Tiffany had accrued. Now, it was quiet. Kyle had gone home with his parents, a broken man, but free. Mark had disappeared into the night, likely exiled from the family forever. Harrison sat down next to her, loosening his tie. He looked tired, but in that rugged, magazine cover way that seemed unfair to regular mortals. You okay? He asked quietly. Serena stared at the steam rising from her cup. I don't know. My best friend from childhood just went to jail for identity theft. I'm exhausted, and I have to be at work in... She checked the Rolex on Harrison's wrist. 2 hours. You're not going to work, Harrison said. I have to, Harrison. I'm a paralegal. If I don't show up, I get fired. And since my credit score is apparently ruined, thanks to Tiffany, I really need the paycheck. Serena, Harrison said, turning his body to face her. You're not listening. You're not going back to that job. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. Harrison reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek, black business card. He handed it to her. It wasn't a contact card. It was a key card. What is this? Serena asked. It's a key to the corporate apartment in London, Kensington High Street, Harrison said. But more importantly, it comes with a job offer. Serena looked up at him, skepticism warring with hope. A job offer? Doing what? I'm not qualified to work at a tech firm, Harrison. I barely passed algebra. I don't need a coder, Harrison said intensely. I have hundreds of coders. They're brilliant with machines and terrible with people. I need a director of operations for my charitable foundation. I need someone who notices when people are cold and gives them a scarf. I need someone who has character, who has loyalty. He leaned in closer. I watched you tonight. You stood up to a room full of people who treated you like dirt. And you did it with dignity. You saved Kyle from a lifetime of misery. You have instincts money can't buy. London, Serena breathed. You want me to move to London? I want you to start over, Harrison said, away from the memories of people like Tiffany. away from the struggle. The salary is £150,000 a year, plus housing, and a signing bonus that clears whatever debt Tiffany tried to pin on you. Serena's hand shook as she held the coffee cup. It was a lifeline, a literal fairy tale, ending handed to her in a hotel lobby. "Why?" she asked, tears pricking her eyes. "Why are you doing this? Is it really just because of the Thai food 10 years ago?" Harrison looked away for a moment, watching the doormen load luggage into a taxi. When he looked back, his eyes were soft. "It started with the Thai food," he admitted. "That $50 kept me in the game when I was ready to quit. But tonight wasn't about the past. It was about the future." He reached out and brushed a stray hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered for a second longer than necessary. "I'm tired of being surrounded by Tiffany's, Serena. I'm tired of the sharks. I want my friend back. And maybe, if she's willing, I'd like to see if there's a date in her future. A real one. No wedding crashers allowed." Serena looked at him. She looked at the keycard. Then she thought about her cubicle, her lonely apartment, and the toxicity she had lived in for so long. "I don't have a passport," she whispered. Harrison grinned, the same boyish grin from the snowy night 10 years ago. "I have a private jet. We can sort the paperwork out when we land." Serena smiled. For the first time in years, it was a real, genuine smile. "Okay," she said. "Okay. When do we leave? The pilot is on standby. We can leave right now." Serena set the coffee down. She stood up. She looked at the door of the Pierre, where she had entered the night before, as a reject, a joke, a nobody. "Let's go," she said. They walked out of the hotel together, into the morning sun. But just as they reached the black SUV waiting at the curb, a frantic figure came running down the sidewalk. It was Kyle. He looked disheveled, still in his tuxedo trousers and a t-shirt. He was out of breath. "Wait!" Kyle yelled. "Harrison! Serena!" Harrison stiffened, stepping in front of Serena again. "Kyle, what's wrong? Is it Tiffany?" "No," Kyle panted, bending over to catch his breath. "Forget her. It's my brother. Mark." "What about him?" Harrison asked. Kyle looked up, his face pale with a new kind of fear. "He cleared out the company safe before he left last night," Kyle said. "The operating capital for the construction business, $2 million in bearer bonds. It's gone, and he left a note." Kyle held up a crumpled napkin. It says, "Tell Serena she hasn't seen the last of the Sterlings. I know about the warehouse." Serena froze, her hand gripping the door handle of the SUV. "The warehouse?" Harrison asked, frowning. "Serena, what is he talking about?" Serena felt the blood freeze in her veins. She hadn't thought about the warehouse in 5 years. She thought that secret was buried deeper than Tiffany's lies. "We need to go," Serena said, her voice urgent, pushing Harrison toward the car. "Harrison, get in the car, now! Serena! Drive!" Serena screamed at the driver as she dove into the back seat. Because the story wasn't over. Tiffany was gone, but the Sterling family had deep roots, and Mark Sterling knew the one thing about Serena Bennett that could send her to prison instead. The black SUV tore away from the curb of the Pierre, merging aggressively into the morning traffic of Fifth Avenue. Inside, the air was heavy with adrenaline. Harrison didn't ask the driver to slow down. He pressed a button to raise the privacy partition, sealing them off from the driver, then turned to Serena. "Talk to me," Harrison said, his voice calm but commanding. "What is the warehouse? And why does Mark Sterling think he can use it to hurt you?" Serena was trembling. She stared out the tinted window, watching the city blur by. The euphoria of the last hour, the job offer, the London dream, had evaporated, replaced by a cold, familiar dread. 5 years ago, Serena began, her voice barely a whisper. Before I was a paralegal, I worked a temp job as an administrative assistant at Sterling Construction. It was right when my mum got sick. I needed the money for her chemo. Harrison listened intently, watching her hands clench in her lap. I was filing invoices late one night, she continued, and I found a folder that wasn't supposed to be there. It was for a project in the Bronx, low-income housing. Mark was the project manager. The invoices showed that they were swapping out the steel beams specified by the architects for cheap, substandard imports from a black market supplier. Harrison's jaw tightened. Fraud and dangerous. Deadly, Serena corrected. If there was a fire or even a minor earthquake, that building would collapse. I made copies of the documents. I was going to go to the police. But Mark, he caught me. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting the memory. He didn't fire me. He cornered me in the parking lot. He told me that if I leaked those documents, he would make sure my mother's health insurance was cancelled. He knew the CEO of the insurance company. He said he would bury us in legal fees until we were on the street. My mum was dying, Harrison. I couldn't risk her care. So I signed a fake NDA. I quit, and I hid the copies of the invoices in a self-storage unit in Queens, the warehouse. And now he's running, Harrison realized aloud. He stole the company's liquidity to flee the country. But he knows that if you talk now, with your mum gone and nothing left to lose, he'll be hunted down for industrial negligence and fraud. He's not just a thief. He's a potential killer. He's going to the storage unit, Serena said, panic rising. He's going to burn it down. If he destroys those papers, I have no proof. And if he finds me there... Harrison pulled out his phone. He didn't dial 911. He dialed a private number. Edwards, it's Pierce, he said into the phone. I need a geolocation trace on a Mark Sterling. He's driving a... He looked at Serena. A silver Porsche Cayenne, Serena supplied. Silver Porsche Cayenne, New York plates. He's heading toward Queens. I want to know exactly where he is. And send the security team to... He looked at Serena again. Queensbridge Storage, Unit 404, she said. Queensbridge Storage, go now. Harrison hung up. He took Serena's hand. His grip was warm and solid. He's not going to burn it, Serena. And he's not going to hurt you. We're going to finish this. The drive to Queens took 30 agonizing minutes. When the black SUV pulled up to the chain-link fence of the storage facility, the scene was eerily quiet. The facility was a sprawling labyrinth of corrugated metal units, grey and desolate under the morning sun. Stay in the car, Harrison ordered as the vehicle came to a halt. No, Serena said, opening her door. It's my name on the lease, and it's my fight. Harrison looked at her, seeing the steel in her spine that had surfaced last night at the wedding. He nodded once. Stay behind me. They moved quickly through the rows of units. The air smelled of dust and old rubber. When they turned the corner toward Unit 404, they saw it. The silver Porsche was parked haphazardly, the driver's door open. The padlock on Unit 404 had been cut with bolt cutters and lay on the asphalt. The roll-up door was half open. Inside, Mark Sterling was frantically tearing through cardboard boxes. He looked like a wild animal, sweating, his tuxedo shirt torn, his eyes manic. He had a gas can in one hand and a lighter in the other. He was dousing a box labeled Taxes 2018 with gasoline. "Mark!" Serena shouted. Mark spun around, the lighter flickering in his shaking hand. When he saw Serena, his face twisted into a snarl. Then he saw Harrison standing beside her, looking like an avenging angel in a bespoke suit, and his eyes widened. "Stay back!" Mark screamed, holding the lighter near the gasoline-soaked box. "I'll burn it all. I swear to God I'll burn this whole place down." "It's over, Mark," Serena said, stepping forward. Her voice didn't shake this time. "Tiffany is in jail. Kyle knows everything. You have nowhere to go." "I have $2 million and a plane ticket," Mark yelled. "I just need these papers gone. You promised, Serena. You promised you'd stay quiet." "You blackmailed me while my mother was dying," Serena said coldly. "That contract is void. Don't take another step." Mark flicked the lighter. The flame danced dangerously close to the fumes. Harrison stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture, but his body coiled for action. "Mark," Harrison said calmly, "do you know how fire suppression systems work in these units? There are heat sensors. The moment you light that, halon gas floods the room. It sucks the oxygen out to kill the fire. You'll be unconscious in 30 seconds. You won't make it to the door." Mark hesitated. He looked up at the ceiling. There were no sprinklers, just vents. He blinked, confusion clouding his panic. "You're lying," Mark spat. "Am I?" Harrison tilted his head. "I own a tech firm, Mark. I know infrastructure. But go ahead, light it. See what happens." It was a bluff, a magnificent, high-stakes bluff. Harrison had no idea what kind of system this rundown facility had, but he said it with the absolute confidence of a man who owned the world. Mark wavered. The lighter lowered an inch. That was all Harrison needed. He didn't lunge. He simply nodded to someone behind Mark. Mark spun around, expecting a cop. There was no one there. Harrison closed the distance in 2 strides. He kicked the gas can out of Mark's hand, sending it clattering against the metal wall. Before Mark could swing the lighter, Harrison grabbed his wrist, twisted it sharply, and forced him to his knees. The lighter dropped to the concrete. "Ah! Let go!" Mark howled. "That," Harrison whispered into Mark's ear as he pinned him to the ground, "is for threatening a dying woman." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder by the second. Harrison's private security team had called the NYPD. Serena walked over to the box Mark had been trying to burn. She reached in and pulled out a thick manila envelope. It was dry. She looked down at Mark, who was struggling uselessly against Harrison's grip. "Here's the thing about karma, Mark," Serena said, clutching the evidence to her chest. "It doesn't have an expiration date." The Teterboro Airport private terminal was quiet. The Gulfstream G650 waited on the tarmac, gleaming white against the blue sky. Serena stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking back at the New York skyline one last time. In the last 4 hours, she had given her statement to the FBI. She had handed over the files. Mark was in custody, facing charges that would put him away for 20 years. The Sterling construction empire was crumbling, and the tenants of the Bronx building were being evacuated to safety, thanks to her evidence. She turned to Harrison, who was waiting by the jet's door. He had finally ditched the suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves. "You okay?" he asked. "I have nothing," Serena said, realizing it for the first time. "My clothes are in my apartment. My cat is with my neighbor. I have a bag of toiletries the FBI gave me, and a dress that smells like old champagne. We'll send for the cat," Harrison promised. "And as for the rest, London has shops. I hear they're decent." Serena laughed. It was a sound of pure relief, of a burden lifted after 10 long years. She walked up the stairs. At the top, she paused and looked at him. "Harrison, yeah? Thank you for the Thai food, for the dance, for saving my life." Harrison smiled, and he took her hand to help her into the cabin. "We're even, Serena. Now buckle up. We have a meeting in London, and I promised you a real date." As the jet roared down the runway and lifted into the clouds, leaving the toxicity of the Pierre Hotel, Tiffany Miller, and the Sterlings far below, Serena Bennett finally closed her eyes and rested. She wasn't the girl at the reject table anymore. She was the girl who was flying. And that is how a single wedding invite exposed a decade of lies, took down a corrupt family empire, and turned a reject guest into the winner of it all. It just goes to show, you never know who the most powerful person in the room really is. It might just be the quiet girl sitting by the kitchen door. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and sweet revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new drama. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were Serena? Would you have exposed Tiffany or just walked away? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.